Hello and welcome to PM Personality Profile. My name is Nana Sakwa IV, and today I am here to talk to one of Ghana's living legends. And as we say, honor your heroes before they go away, and that's exactly what we're going to do right here at the Akasi Psychiatric Hospital. And I'm here to talk to Dr. Akasi Osei. And you all agree with me, this is one man who has really championed the cause of mental health in Ghana. I just want to find out what keeps him going, what keeps him thinking. He wasn't born a psychiatrist. So before he became a doctor, what was he? And we all don't know, and I'm here to find out. This is going to be one of an intriguing interview. Stay tuned. Well, folks, hello and welcome back. And as I said, I am here to talk to a living legend. And in our part of the world, they don't come cheap at all, and they don't come very often. Every once in a while, one pops up. And Dr. Akasi Osei has definitely stood out exemplary as one who has selflessly served his nation in the area of mental health. And sometimes I think he's a lone ranger, even though he gives credits to others. Well, let's say he's the face of it. And with all the condemnations and everything, he has stood up high and still fought, making sure there's a bill passed for mental health so that you and I, one day, when we need it, we can fall on. And I'm here to find out, aside all the good things we know of him in the mental industry, who is he? Because he wasn't born a psychiatrist, was he? So let's find out who he was before he became that. Doc, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
And welcome to PM Personality Profile.
Thank you very much.
So, Doc, I just want to go back well before you even dreamt of becoming a psychiatrist. You know, where were you born?
Well, I come from a Jiso Onwe.
Okay.
But I was born at Tepa, I'm told. Tepa in the Ashanti region.
I see.
That was where my parents were farming. And then they moved down to Abunsiaso, a village community in the Tepa area. And so I moved down with them. And that's where I started my basic primary, class 1. And then I was moved to my hometown, Ejisonwe. And then I continued there, and from there, everything followed.
I see. Doc, let me ask you, because my father said when he was going to school, he didn't have any shoes. I just want to find out if it was at the time, did you have shoes for school?
I certainly didn't. Indeed, when I went to the secondary school, from Onwe, I went to a community secondary school, day school, and it had just been started. So I was the second group to go there, but eventually the school, I left before, I left a later, the school collapsed anyway. But when I entered the school, from there I went to other schools, I'm not enter, you'll come there later. But when I went to that school, I think I went barefooted. And that was secondary school. And then the school prefect asked me, don't you have footwear at home? And I said, yes, I have. So he asked me to go away. So that tells you that if that was even the secondary school, right from the class 1, it was, barefooted.
Wow. So, and then from there, what secondary school?
Yeah, from there I went to Jamnaka Secondary School at Ofenso in the Ashanti region for my O-levels, and from there to St. John's School Secondary in the Western region for my A-levels, and from there to Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, School of Medical Sciences, to the medical school. From there, the West African College of Physicians and Surgeons for my psychiatry training, and then Johns Hopkins University for Hubert Humphrey Fellowship, and then India Law Society Law College for international diploma in mental health, law, and human rights. So basically that has been it. And then also, I'm also a fellow of the Ghana College of Physicians and Surgeons.
Doc, let's go back. Isn't it amazing? I mean, there were you from a village community, walking barefooted, but you were able to go through all these institutions. I'm going to divert more and come back, but why is it that can't be happening today? Because I'm sure if I take a child to the same school today, they dare not dream of becoming a psychiatrist.
Well, that is unfortunate. It's an unfortunate part of our national development. As a nation, I keep saying that when you say we are a nation in development or we are a developing nation, very often we tend to think it means that we are a nation that doesn't have money or that is poor, which I think is wrong. It means we are a nation now developing our systems. Our system of education, our system of health, our system of communication, transportation, system of even time management, and of course, system of economy. So we are a nation developing these systems. But because we don't recognize that, we tend to lay undue emphasis on the economy, thinking that if the economy improves, everything else will improve. Wrong. If you can improve the whole system, then the economy will also improve. So your question is, how come that those days you could come from the village school and then move on, and now, because basically our system of education itself is still developing and you're not recognizing it, so every now and then you move back and forth and back and forth. But we need to recognize that there is a fundamental problem of development of our systems. Once you recognize that, we sit down, how do we develop the systems? Then those will come in. Otherwise, we'll be back and forth, things will fall apart, and we try to improve, and then that's what you have.
Were your parents educated?
No, they were stark illiterates. I'm told that my father went to class 1, but he was really very strong, and he was the no-nonsense type of person. He could not stand injustice being meted out to somebody else. So one day he saw a huge boy bullying a tiny boy, and he could not stand that. So he went in to beat the big bully so mercilessly that when it was reported to his father, the father said, no, if I wait, you might bring some problem. So he let him drop out. And that is it. So he never continued. My mother never went to class 1. But they decided that they would want to educate all their children. So we all got at least some basic education.
Wow. So at that age, who was your mentor? Who were you looking up to, thinking, well, maybe this teacher or that priest or?
Right, very early, I think the head teacher of my school, primary school, was those days. Well, I'm told that I was really not of age in terms of my size and whatnot. Those were the days you put your hand by your ears.
Yeah.
And if you're able to touch the ear, then you are of age. So I was tiny. My hand I was never able to touch my ear. So I thought that I wanted to go to school. So those days, you say you'll go and walk by the feet of the teacher now. So I went and sat by the feet of the teacher, the head teacher, and he graciously allowed me. And during exams, I took the exams, and I was tops. So the teacher is my mentor, the head teacher from that school. And then when I came to Onwe, my head teacher, that teacher I was called Teacher Nkrumah, Pastor Nkrumah. And I'm sure probably of blessed memory. And when I came to Onwe, my hometown, Master Williams, we call him Ko Wule. He was also, I would say he was my mentor those days. And then eventually I moved up and other mentors came in. Good.
And then, obviously, you came to Kwame Nkrumah University. By then, had you chosen that, look, I'm going into psychiatry, or I'm just going to do medicine, and then you branch later?
The first time future career occurred to me, was when I was in primary 6. That was the time when the American astronauts had landed on the moon. So before then, all I knew was I was going to school, I was making the grades, I loved school, I liked schooling, that was all. So nothing like, what do I want to be in future? Until, as I said, primary 6, the Americans landed on the moon. I said, that's what I want to be, astronauts. And I kept the dream alive until I went to the Australian school. And I met a friend who I admired so much, because those days, coming from the village school, I didn't know much, and he was rattling OAU, AU, UN, UTANG. So I really loved the guy. And then he said, you want to be an astronaut? You must be crazy. You can't be in Ghana.
You remember his name?
Yes, he's called Adubofo. You can't be in Ghana and you say you want to be an astronaut. That you won't get a job, you won't even go to the space, moon, blah, blah, blah. And I thought his argument was strong because of my admiration for him. So I dropped that idea. I must say that he was wrong. Now, if anybody wants to be anything, go ahead and be anything, whatever you want to. So, but I dropped the idea. And then other things came to my mind. I wanted to be a physicist. So I wanted to be a physicist. From the astronaut, I wanted to be a physicist. And again, the question of to what extent will it be of help to your own people and what not. Then I went to I think Form 2 or Form 3, a teacher, I had physics teacher called Ohemen. The guy was just excellent in his physics. He could just stand 1 hour, deduce without, and sense, and it was gospel truth. So we all loved physics. And he had, as I said, the command and the ability to instill the love for physics into his students. And then he told us that he was a medical student and that he had only taken 1 year off to come and teach. Eventually, we realized that was not true. And so he drew our attention to medicine. This is somebody who was so good in this area, and he said he was a medical student, and what the goodies you have in medicine. So he moved all of us into medicine. So that is how, I think that was second or third year in the Australian school, I fell in love with medicine, and it had remained throughout. So and then when I went to the university, then the first time I heard of psychiatry, psychology, I said, that's the area I want to be. That was probably the first or second year. So from second year of the medical school, I knew that I was going to be a psychiatrist, and I have never wavered.
Wow. Wow. Because I was going to ask that, normally, gynecology is more popular and more fun, so, why psychiatry?
Psychiatry for various reasons. One, that's a long story, I must say. I am and I've been a very inquisitive person all along. So I've been asking questions, well, right from the very beginning, childhood, questions that people found difficult to answer. My elder brother told me not long ago that one of the questions I asked when I was just about 3 or 4 years was, why do we get tired when we climb a mountain? So that tells you the kinds of questions I was, so not many questions of mine could be answered to my satisfaction. And then there were some magical shows, those days. We had very limited entertainment opportunities. Videos and computers of today were not there. So magical shows and concert party, those things. So I got amazed at the magical shows, killing somebody and resurrecting, gouging your eyes, cutting the tongue and all those things. So I tried to understand what is happening, and I didn't have any answers. Magic. Fair enough. And so such questions came, and I went to the science school. I read a lot, and I read books like biographies, and there was a journal, Psychology Today, which explained the human mind and human behavior. And I think that began to give me some answers to some of the questions I was asking, which I wasn't getting answers to. And so I fell in love with psychology, the mind. And that is why when I went to the medical school, I heard of psychology, psychiatry, I said that's the area. And I've never wavered. So, and then eventually I realized that there's a lot that can be done to help the mentally ill who otherwise would be at the fringes of the society. And that's how it got cemented, that is the area. And again, my abstract thinking seems to fit into psychiatry. And so everything seemed to be fitting in place like a jigsaw.
Doc, let's go back to this magic. What happened to them? Because now we don't see that magic anymore. They're killing and eating of the intestines, leave the body for 3 days and resurrecting. I mean, was it all playing with our mind, or were they true? Or
well, they themselves told us that there are 2 types of magic. There's a black magic and there's a white magic. The white magic is full of tricks. And my elder brother actually used to do some of those tricks. He would just boil egg, meanwhile, or conjure egg from nowhere, and he would tell you that it's plain trick. And they will say the hand is faster than the eyes. So they will play the tricks on you. You think it's pure magic and it's just tricks. So there's that aspect. But they also say that there's the other aspect, which is black magic, which is what is involved in killings and whatnot. And they claim it's a mystical phenomenon. I don't understand that, or I didn't understand those days. With time now, I'm still not sure exactly what they were doing. Some might still be tricks, but others probably, they might have been using some mystical powers you don't understand. But your question is, why are they not there now? I think that now we have more varieties of entertainment. We have the concert proper, which those days are musical shows. We have the videos. We have all those kinds of things. And those are also, or were considered to be satanic. And now with civilization and religion coming in, moving some of those things to the background, then people will not patronize them. So I think the patronage eventually went down, and with the patronage going down, they were really doing business. So eventually they fell out of favor. I think that's what eventually happened. But I must say that I understand, and I stand for correction, that we hear that some of those people have converted into charismatic priests.
Moved into the church.
That's right. I don't know how far that is.
Those of you who don't know what we are talking about, these were, mind-blowing things, I remember Professor Diago.
Professor Diago, Professor Isa, Professor Hindu.
Yeah. Doing all their tricks.
That's right.
I mean, because you can sit close and you see the stabbing and the gushing of the blood and everything, but, well, I thought you would give me a good answer. Since you know how the mind works, you would give me a good answer on this. I'm going to take a break, and then when we come back, Acting Chief Executive Officer, the Mental Health Authority, and Chief Psychiatrist, Ministry of Health, Dr. Akasi Osei. And this is one-on-one with him. Doc, your family, I mean, are you that? I mean, very advisedly, they are knowing that because you're so smart, you're going to know them as soon as they do something wrong, you're going to sass it. You know how the brain works. Are you that?
Yeah, well, as part of psychiatry, you immediately assess everybody that you meet. So
I'm going to get my assessments.
Yeah, you assess everybody that you meet, and it's not like you are deliberately doing it, but instinctively you assess everybody. So that's part of it. But at the same time, too, I think that also gives us a certain understanding and appreciation of human behavior. So you understand why people will behave the way they behave. What could irritate somebody else, you might just take it that, well, that is his own mind playing psychology on him. And so you appreciate it. This is not to say that we don't get angry, we do. But basically, it puts us in a certain position to understand human behavior. Once you understand, you can tolerate. Once you can tolerate, you can live with many people.
I see. How many kids?
I have 2 kids.
2 boys, 2 girls?
2 girls.
2 girls. Oh, I feel sorry for them. I feel sorry for them. They can't play any tricks on you. So I've sassed you already.
Right.
Your body language is not right.
That's right.
And how about Mrs. Osei?
She used to work at SNIT, Social Security and National Insurance Trust, but she's left and she's on her own. I must say, initially, I had to psych myself for her to understand me. Because there were some things I think she did not understand, but eventually, understanding human behavior, I understood her and then tried to see how best to get her to understand me. But initially, it wasn't that easy what she called me negative man. Everything that people will say, this is, I would think is this way. But now we understand ourselves.
Now I want to know where you met.
In Kumasi, she lived around the same area where my family house was. And through a common friend, she was a friend to a friend. So through that common friend, we met. And immediately I said, I think that's nice woman. But that was all. And so we only became platonic friends. And it was later, years after that, the idea of marriage occurred to me. And always the name and the face will occur to me. And she was still available. So that's how things began.
Isn't that beautiful? How many years ago?
We married, the first one actually 16 years. So
Okay. Well, I think now you've gone through all the psychology.
That's right.
I've gone through all the psychology. And do you do on hair as well? Says no, you're up to something because I can read your body language.
Well, yes, you can read, and then most important is that you read, and so that is for your information.
Not to create walls.
That's right, not to create walls. For your information, and for you to see how you can, in the light of the background understanding, to create peace.
So what's your daily schedule like? Running,
Yes, on a typical day, for instance, I wake up early, listen to radio news, and then as for TV, I watch it only in the evenings. Okay. So listen to the radio news, and then hurry up, take my household chores, get to work. There are some 2 days in the week that we have clinical meetings. So on those days, we have it at 7:30 to 8:30. So on those days, I come early, 7:30, we have the clinical meetings. Other days that are not the clinical meetings, a little more relaxed. So I come to the work side, clinical meetings, consultations, media interviews. In fact, media interviews will start from home. Sometimes I can get about 20, 30 calls a day. Sometimes I have to pull over and listen to the media, to the radio interviews. And after the radio interviews, the phone-ins, I come, live recordings, other studio work, or they come and record. Meanwhile, clinic will go on. Then my residents will come and discuss cases. I may have meetings at the ministries to attend, so I go attend the ministries. I may have meetings elsewhere, I go and attend them. I normally reserve those meetings outside the hospitals for Wednesdays, Wednesdays and Fridays. So those are the days, but otherwise within the hospitals. And then I may have some Baha'i activities too. I'm a Baha'i, so I attend those.
Baha'i?
Baha'i. We can discuss that too, for my religion.
We'll discuss, we'll discuss that. I'm interested.
And eventually I get home maybe about 8:30, sometimes as late as 9:10. Yeah, but that's the kind of thing. And then that is where I take advantage to do my computer works and emails and whatnot. So sometimes people get my emails as late as 1 a.m., 2 a.m. and say, what's this guy doing? But that's the time I can. Yeah, so basically that's that.
Yeah, I say that because I know there's a lot of challenge running, especially asylum here. And every time we hear in the news about shortage of this and shortage of that, and then we hear you frustrated, fighting for it. That's why I was trying to find out what your grueling schedule is like. But I want to quickly go to Baha'i. Obviously, you studied in India.
Well, I got the Baha'i faith not from India. In fact, Baha'i is not an Indian religion. Neither is it an Eastern religion. Well, it came from Middle East, all right. That's exactly where Christianity came from. But Christianity coming from Middle East is not an Eastern religion. Islam, Middle East is not an Eastern religion. So the Baha'i faith actually started in 1844 by a man called Baha'u'llah. Baha'u'llah means the glory of God. And basically what is in 1844, as I said, and it's spread worldwide. So it's everywhere in the world now. But basically what he's saying is that the whole world, I mean, the world is but one country and mankind is citizens. All men are one, all religions are one, and God is one. So basically these are the tenets of the Baha'i faith. And with that, I thought that was something interesting. A religion that says not only is that religion true, but all religions are true. Many other religions will tell you that I'm the only truth. The others are not true. This one says not only is it a true religion, but all the others are true at the same time because they come from the same one God. And the Baha'i faith likens religion to schooling. From class 1, I mentioned some of my teachers. So from class 1, you go to class 2, up to university, whatever level. And every stage, you get a different teacher. That teacher teaches you what you need to know, not what he knows. So at class 1, you learn ABCD. At the university, you don't learn ABCD. But what you learn, the Shakespeare's plays and whatnot, is still built on the ABCD. And they teach you only what you need to know. So in the same way, religion is God's way of teaching mankind. So he brings the prophet of God, his prophet or messengers or manifestations to teach us what we need to know. After you've learned and outlived that, we move higher and another teacher comes. So these are the teachers we call the prophets, messengers or manifestations, and their followers establish the religions. So from afar, you look at your religion and think that your religion is superior to the other religion, but it's actually the same thing. Indeed, every religion has two aspects. There is the essential truth or spiritual truth, which runs through them all. Love God, love your neighbor as yourself. It runs through them all. And there's the other aspect, which is the social teaching that changes from religion to religion because the religion comes at different times based on the culture and whatnot. These are the things those are also about what to wear, how to pray, what to eat. These are the things people look at and think my religion is different from yours and therefore mine is superior to you. But those are the non-essential aspects of religion. So that's the Baha'i faith basically.
Well, it's beautiful. I think I'm converted. But is the whole family Baha'i or just you?
Well, my wife is not a Baha'i and the children following care are not yet. So they'll say they are, but eventually when they grow, we try to teach them both, so they will eventually decide for themselves. But my wife is a Pentecostal.
Okay, okay. She hasn't got any qualms about you being a Baha'i?
Well, she knew I was a Baha'i before she married me, so she understands perfectly. That as long as we keep our different religions and I understand her, she understands that's fine.
But it doesn't sound conflicting anyway. I mean, the Baha'i faith, I don't see how anybody can say no, I don't, because it's such an inclusive and welcoming.
It doesn't conflict with anything, but others will think that as long as you are not with me, then you are against me. That's how the others will say. But we think that it is part of their not understanding. Indeed, the Baha'i faith comes with and the other thing is that every religion comes with a certain set of principles meant for that time. When Islam, Christianity, and Hinduism, all those religions came, they could not have talked about oneness of mankind because the Americans didn't know Ghanaians, Africans. But now we are in the position to know everywhere. So we say one world, one people. So Baha'i faith now lays emphasis on oneness of mankind. The whole world to see ourselves as one country, and we encourage ourselves to get even one language, one universal language, auxiliary language, which everybody will speak. One world government, one world parliament, one currency. We need to get all these structures that will facilitate oneness and not the sectarian way of looking at things. And that is the kind of emphasis.
With the benefit of hindsight, do you think Islam and Christianity should change their teachings and bring that inclusion a little bit more with the benefit of hindsight now?
It is not that. The fact is they need to understand. For instance, if you see, it's interesting that Muslims and Christians may be fighting when they actually have the same grandfather. They are the same grandfather. Abraham is all their grandfather. Abraham gave birth to Isaac, through whom eventually Christianity came. He also gave birth to, he married Hagar, through whom eventually Muhammad came, and we have Islam. So they have the same grandfather. But because we seem not to understand ourselves, we are laying undue emphasis on the social aspect. We are fighting. If we understood that is the eternal truth that runs through them, the spiritual truth is the same, there will be no basis for us to fight. We are not wearing the same uniform, the same clothes, but we understand that the clothing is only something outside. The real you and me is not the clothing. So what is within us, that is the most important thing. So if Christians understand Islam and Muslims understand Christianity, trust me, there will be no fighting. Because the bottom line is that do good, be good unto yourself, do as you want others to do unto you, love God. It's the same spiritual truth that runs through. So it is not a question of they having to change their teaching, but knowing where to lay their emphasis.
So do you have set days that you worship, like Islam does Friday, Christians does Sunday?
We don't have any particular day like that. We have a 19-day cycle. In fact, every religion comes with its own calendar. And that calendar then determines your mode of. And again, those are the social aspects. So the Baha'i faith has 19 months in a year.
Okay. 19
months of 19 days each. Remaining 4 or 5 days, which we call intercalary days, and we place them between the 18th and the 19th. So 18th and the 19th month. So the first day of the month is our, if you like, our church day, so to speak. So on whichever day it falls, be it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, that is the day. So that is our main, and we call that the Baha'i feast. That is the phenomenon. And there are 3 aspects. The first part is for spiritual teachings, where we read the writings and the prayers. And the second part is consultation, where we discuss issues pertaining to the community. And the third part is social aspect, where you socialize. So whichever day it falls, that's the day we hold it. Of course, you can defer it based on the convenience of the people. But beyond that, based on where you are, Sundays in our part of the world being free, then we also meet and do what we call deepenings, some further teachings on the faith.
Okay.
And again, it means that if you're a predominantly Islamic community where Fridays will be free, then you meet on Fridays. In another community where Saturday will be free, they will meet on Saturdays. So in our part of the world, most people meet on Sundays. But the regular day that we will call our church service day, in inverted commas, those are the 19 days, whichever the day falls.
Okay. Do you have a big congregation in Ghana?
On paper, you say we must be well, actually, we recently did a head count, and we had about 2,000 people. But on paper, you have about 15,000. 50,000 cumulative, right from the very first day that the faith came together, and that was 1951, officially, to date. You have about 15,000. But as I said, some would have left and gone to other places and died. But head count gives us about 2,000 people.
Okay, okay.
So scattered all over the country.
I'm going to move from religion and talk about your challenges at work. Because I feel for you a lot when I hear you in the morning shouting for things like toilet roll and rubber gloves. And, how do you keep going?
Remember, I mentioned earlier that what we need to appreciate as a nation is that we are now still developing. And so with that as the background, it makes me appreciate and tolerate and accept a whole lot of things.
That's it. I'm going to take a break here, and when we come back, we're going to really find out what makes him tick when he wakes up in the morning knowing I haven't got just disposable gloves. Hello and welcome back. And I just need to find out from Dr. how he keeps going. Well, he's told me, well, he understands that we are developing as a nation, and therefore, if he hasn't got anything yet, he knows as we're developing, it might come. But Dr. Gloves, I mean, how developed or underdeveloped should you be for a state to deny you, rubber gloves? I mean, I Googled it and it was like £1.19 for a box of 100. And I'm sure even if you buy bulk, they'll probably be cheaper. I mean, that must hit you.
And the point is that We, in the past, all along, as a nation, we had not been interested in mental health, I must say. So, no, mental health had not been the baby of anybody. I mean, that's not been juicy. And that is also so because, again, I came in with my understanding of realities. That is also so because mental illness will not normally kill you. Somebody has depression will not normally kill the person. Schizophrenia will not normally kill you. But malaria will kill you, HIV/AIDS will kill you, diarrhea will kill you. So in a country where we don't have all the resources, we have limited resources, somehow attention then was shifted to the conditions of high fatality as against conditions of rather low fatality. So that in some sense may have served us from giving our sympathies to mental illness. That is one aspect. The other aspect is that as a society generally, we have also been too superstitious. Mental illness, people think of juju, witchcraft, Satan, evil spirits, and whatnot. So that robs us of our sympathy for the mentally ill. And that contributes to part of the stigma and the discrimination we have against mentally ill. Now, the same people, you and I, are those who eventually move up to become policymakers. So the same stigma, the same lack of interest then keeps going in their minds. And so we have mental illness has always been at the fringes of the society, at the back burner, and has not achieved the right attention that it deserves. So that partly explains some of these matters. Again, talking about the stigma, mentally ill person, you might be ejected from home, you might be sacked from your marriage and whatnot. It's all part of the stigma. So all that show gets to the point where we have not got what we need. But then we realize that we need a systemic solution. Not just stigma, you need to fight the stigma, but not just that, you need to fight lack of resources, you need to fight all those things. And you need a systemic solution, and that systemic solution will come through a law. Lawyers tell us that law is a tool for social re-engineering. And that's why we fought for the Mental Health Act to be put in place, to re-engineer the society, for us to give the appropriate attention that mental illness or mental health requires. And now it's there. So whilst I was working towards that, I appreciated the fact that I might not have this or that, but that was because of the system we had inherited and which we are trying to correct. So if I come, something is not there, I'm not too worried. It is a system we are trying to change. Change it well, and eventually things will be very different.
I like that. I like that because now, how many psychiatrists do we have?
There are 18 in the country, but 12 practicing in the public sector. The other 6 are either retired, relaxing, or in private practice. But 12 are in the public sector. And that's low, all over the country.
All the 25 million of us?
Yes. And that is, you mentioned this to somebody in the United States, wow. And that's not to say we don't have mental illness in Ghana. We have a lot, as it is everywhere.
Actually, very lot.
Sorry?
That's actually very much.
Yeah, probably even more. So that's the situation. And many reasons account for that, but lack of interest. Very often, if a young person wants to go into mental health, like a young daughter, a young nurse, the reason will say, why? You want to go and get mad yourself? So the stigma that is attached to the mental ill also tends to be attached to us. But that is not true that you get mentally ill. You get, it's not contagious. You don't get infected by virtue of you working with the mental health. But that's also one of the reasons why people tend not to be interested in mental health. But I think things are changing a little bit.
No, but 18, so should the state make a cautious effort to say, look, I'm going to put 100 more in, therefore I'm putting this incentive their way, or to go put 100 more in?
Now, with the Mental Health Act passed, Mental Health Authority formed a Mental Health Board as a governing body or governing council to push the Mental Health Act. It's no longer the issue of the government. It's now the body, the Mental Health Board. And that is one of the major issues that the board is tackling, to be able to arouse the interest of young men and women to come into mental health. And that is going to be done. We are hoping that in the next 10 years or so, we should have about 100 psychiatrists in the country. So many psychologists, clinical psychologists, so many nurses, and that is going to be done. The reasons why people were not interested, we've identified them, we are trying to remove them one by one. I told you, workload, the fact that the kind of mental health care that we have had all along has not been good enough. So if you change the face of mental health, then it will attract people to come in. The stigma will go down, and then people will naturally feel like coming in. And then also, of course, incentives. Elsewhere, if you're a mental health worker, a driver at a mental health facility, you get more than your colleague elsewhere. because there are obvious risks. So all those are factored in your remunerations, which you don't have here. You'll try and bring all this into mental health care, and that will eventually attract people to come.
Clinical psychologist is another thing which Ghanaians don't see the use of, but I think it's a very necessary thing that we are turning a blind eye to. I don't know whether I'm right or wrong.
You're perfectly right. Again, in the past, and again, the kind of care we are having is the dying phase of the past situation, which will die off eventually. So all along, we have not given attention to our mental health care. And I keep saying that is partly or largely amongst the reasons why we are having suicide rates and what else. All these are mental health issues. So clinical psychology, issues that should be dealt with by the clinical psychologists, because you don't recognize them, we don't have them, and we have numerous challenges in the country. In the past, we probably didn't need clinical psychologists a lot because our own people were local psychologists. I mean, our extended family system served the purpose of clinical psychologists. If you had issues with your wife, your family, you could easily go to your in-law for it to be resolved. Anybody, a neighbor could come in and resolve issues for you. So you really didn't have much to worry. So we had factors that helped us to distress. Now all those things are breaking down. You've walled your house and written there, beware of dogs. Your mother-in-law comes to visit you, she spends 1 or 2 days, and you are by your conduct trying to get her to go. All these issues. So the local structures that we had to deal with stresses in the past have broken down. So we need alternative modern structures in place. Those are the clinical psychologists, orthodox mental health approaches, which you don't have now. And that is why we are having stresses, conflicts here and there, insults, and suicides, homicides. A whole lot of things we call social vices are actually mental health issues at the roots. So we need clinical psychologists, and we quickly need a number of them. Until very recently, the ministry didn't have recognition of clinical psychologists.
Wow.
So though a lot have been produced in the system, over 100 produced at the University of Ghana University of Ghana, only a few are employed. In the past, they were not employed by the ministry because we didn't have established posts for them. Thank God now you've recognized that the ministry has recognized and established a post for clinical psychologists, and so you are now beginning to employ them. And very shortly, you will have a number of them, not only at the psychiatric hospitals, but all health facilities, well, the big facilities, and also at the industry, schools, and whatnot. That is the area where we are moving. And then you reduce the suicide rates, you reduce the child abuse, you reduce the defilement, you reduce a whole lot of social vices.
Doc, talking about suicide, you raised the argument that it shouldn't be made illegal, basically. So, if you explain this to us, so if somebody tries to commit a suicide, they should not be charged for a crime, but probably sent to a hospital?
Precisely. Criminalizing suicide is evidence that we are still a society that is way behind. I don't want to use the word backward, but that's the reality. The point is that in the past, yes, you wanted to deter people from committing suicide. You wanted to find some, you abort it. The reality is, as we know today, is that people attempt suicide because they have mental health problems. For every 10 cases of suicide or attempted suicide, 9 actually have mental health problems, 8 of which is from depression. Depression. If you are depressed, you feel hopeless, you feel worthless, you feel life is not worth it. You may even hear voices instructing you to kill yourself, and you will go ahead. So depression, mental illness. So if somebody attempts suicide because of mental illness, and thank God he does not die, and you say you are going to punish the person, you are punishing him for his mental illness. And that is how bad it is. Our laws were carved from British laws. So the British laws, they had suicide as a crime. They have moved on. They have decriminalized suicide, and we still keep it. That is something we need to change. And I'm giving the promise that if you don't change, a time will come, you will have to go to court to get that changed. India did that, and it was changed. I hope you will not get to the point where we need to go to court. We will engage the judiciary, the Attorney General, and see how we can change it. But frankly, suicide or attempted suicide being a crime is it's a blot. Not only that, a few things will need to change as we're moving, like criminalizing addiction. Somebody is a drug addict. And so because of his addiction, he takes cannabis. And you say, you are taking cannabis, you are addicted, go to jail. That is wrong. He is taking cannabis because he is addicted. Once you're addicted, you have a disease. What you need to do, once you arrest this person, take him for assessment. Does he have an addiction problem? If we say yes, then take him for mandatory treatment and not to take him to jail. But if you realize that he's not addicted, he's only using for recreation, then that's a crime. So we are not saying we are legalizing cannabis. We should not legalize. Neither are we saying we are decriminalizing recreational use. No, but we are decriminalizing addiction. And addiction is a disease.
So then what happens? I just say, oh, well, I'm addicted to it. If I'm caught with a spliff, oh, well, I'm addicted to it. So
we will take you to the professionals who will assess. Because we can assess. It's not enough for you to say I'm addicted. Neither does the policeman have the capacity to say you are addicted. He will have to send you for assessment. It's only when assessment says you are an addict that issue will come in. And then you'll be taken for mandatory treatment.
Let's get controversial a bit, because Doc, you said that we shouldn't legalize marijuana. Holland has done it and they are doing fine. And there hasn't been any scientific test to say that this is categorically wrong or categorically right. People smoke tobacco, drink whiskey with all the chemicals, cigars. So why don't they just have their spliff every now and then?
Every scientist knows we have what we call confounding factor. So you do a scientific study, research, and you don't consider this confounding factor, you'll get wrong results. So what has been happening is people are abusing, many countries are legalizing. The confounding factor is that those countries are legalizing because they have realized that they have run out of control of the drug use. And so if you've lost control, then recognize it, and then with that recognition, be able to put in place some measures of control. We've not gone there yet. Okay. We have not waged the war fully on drugs, so we can't say you've lost the war. Those have lost the war, and they are trying to use some mitigating factors. Indeed, there are studies today that show that those countries that have legalized are beginning to see lots of behavior problems, obviously associated with drug use. So it will be dangerous for us to move there. We can't move there. No, we can't legalize cannabis. Nice. Those countries, for instance, some have legalized guns for 16-year-olds. Should we legalize guns? So we can't copy things blindly. Laws are made based on the situation, circumstance. If the circumstance is not here, why do we make the law to allow it?
Are we turning a blind eye, though? Is it not in wide use and we are turning a blind eye to it?
No, we are not turning a blind eye, but we are not waging the war on it enough. That much I must say. For instance, until recently, all our efforts towards solving the drug problem was to look at it as criminal issue, reduce the supply, availability of the drugs on the market. That's what we call supply reduction. And that was what all our 98% of our efforts were given to. And we have failed, not because we failed the war, but we failed in the efforts that we used. Now we recognize that if you really want to win the war, give equal attention to what we call demand reduction. Prevent people from using, give them enough education so they will stay away from it. For those who are addicted, treat them so they won't have any need for it. Between you and me, if it's free, cannabis is free, cocaine is free, you still won't go for it. But go to do and reduce the price of cannabis, people will go for that. So treat those who are addicted so that they won't have any need. That's the demand reduction. Once you bring the demand reduction to balance the supply reduction, then you'll be winning the war. We've not done that. Okay. Where we have placed Narcotics Control Board, to me, is also not good enough. We need to raise the Narcotics Control Board into a commission, take it outside any ministry so that it will have the clout and the budgetary allocation. Then we can fight it. But once it's under Ministry of Interior, we'll always look at it as legal issue, as control, supply reduction issue, and that's a problem. So these are the things you need to put in place.
You've done a lot, and I think this is an unfair question, but I mean, where do you want to see the mental health association or sector probably in the next 10 years or next 5 years?
It's not unfair at all. In fact, it's a vision. In the next 5 to 10 years, I can promise you know that about it. Mental health care will be like it is in any part of the civilized or developed world. You go to Europe, you don't see mentally ill patients on the streets.
No.
It will happen so here. All the patients on the streets will be taken away for treatment, not to hide them. You will treat them, you will look at them, you will not stigmatize them. Mentally, I am foreseeing a time when people mentally ill can come onto the TV and say, I have schizophrenia, I have depression, I have this, and so what. And people will just clap. Now you say you have schizophrenia, the next day people run away from you. But I must say things are changing. 10 years ago, your own colleagues, seeing you coming from the Accra Psychiatric Hospital, ask you, did you have a problem? Now, those same people seeing you coming out will say, did you have a program? So we are making a progress.
I think so. I think so. I think so. And I may confess, this is the first time I'm coming here. See, so things are changing. Doc, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
And keep on the good work. And I don't assess everybody too much. After the cameras, I'll get my assessment. But folks, until I come to you next Friday with a different personality, have a beautiful weekend and stay healthy.